Fellow participants, as we are about to begin, there are a few housekeeping notes to all before we start session 1 public lecture. Should you have any questions during the lecture, please write them in Facebook comment section, and if there's time, the moderator will read them out for our guest speaker to answer. This session will begin shortly. Thank you for your kind cooperation and attention.
Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you who are joining us from all around the world. Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Ahmad Zaidi bin Laden, Executive Director of the Mahathir Science Award Foundation, our esteemed speaker, Professor Sir Alimuddin Zumla, the 2020 Mahathir Science Award Laureate, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2020 Mahathir Science Award Laureate public lecture and joint intellectual discourse hosted by the Mahathir Science Award Foundation in collaboration with the Academy of Sciences, Malaysia. It's absolutely fantastic that after almost 2 years, the public lecture of the 2020 MSA Laureate is finally here. I'm Abhi Veerakumarasivam, and it absolutely gives me a great pleasure to be the moderator for today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you may already know, the Mahathir Science Award is the world's most prestigious prize in tropical sciences. The award is conferred to individuals, institutions, or organizations who have made internationally recognized breakthroughs, and more importantly, an indelible impact in one of the following 4 categories: tropical agriculture, tropical architecture and engineering, tropical medicine, and tropical natural resources. Annually, only 1 award is presented in one of the 4 categories, so it's very, very prestigious. And today, we have the honor of hosting the public lecture by Sir Alimuddin Zumla, the winner of the 2020 Mahathir Science Award in Tropical Medicine. Sir Alimuddin is currently a professor of infectious diseases and international health at the University College of London. Sir Alimuddin is a truly global thought leader in infectious diseases, tuberculosis and HIV in particular. He's well known for his exceptionally robust health policy relevant research, capacity building development, and advocacy contributions to the understanding of the epidemiology, pathogenesis, diagnosis, treatment, and ultimately effective control of tuberculosis, as well as various other respiratory tract infections and emerging pathogens with epidemic potential. And as we emerge collectively from the COVID-19 pandemic, we all understand how impactful this type of research is. Since being awarded the 2020 Mahathir Science Award, Sir Alimuddin has gone on to receive further recognitions. In 2022, Sir Alimuddin received the Sir Patrick Manson Medal by the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, becoming the first ethnic minority, i.e. non-Caucasian recipient in 100 years. If I were to read out all the accolades, recognitions, awards, medals, and prizes that Sir Alimuddin has received throughout his career in research, we will have no time for his lecture and forum. But what is evident is that Sir Alimuddin's impact extends beyond the scientific achievements. His achievements also represents the importance of inclusivity and diversity in our global research ecosystems. His achievements truly serve an inspiration to the billions of people in the global south or tropics. A belief that instills the importance of innovative capacity, a belief that we have that capacity, a belief that we are able to demonstrate their leadership ability, and most importantly, to create that hope for a world that is more equitable, where every voice is heard and every voice matters. But before we start the lecture, I would like to invite the Executive Director of the Mahathir Science Award Foundation, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Ahmad Zaidi bin Laden, to deliver his welcoming remarks.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good day. The esteemed 2020 Mahathir Science Award Laureate, Sir Alimuddin Zumla, Professor of Infectious Diseases and International Health from University College London. Distinguished panelists, Professor Datuk Dr. Abhi Veerakumarasivam, an acclaimed infectious disease expert from University of Malaya, and moderator Dr. Siti Khairiyah Muhammad Hanafiyah, member of the Young Scientist Network, YSN, the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, and the 2018 FameLab International Champion in Science Communication. Students, researchers, scientists, academicians, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Mahathir Science Award Foundation and Academy of Sciences Malaysia, I would like to welcome all guest speakers and participants from various parts of the world for joining us today in the 2020 MSA Laureate Public Lecture and joint intellectual discourse. The Mahathir Science Award Foundation was established in 2010. It is positioned to be the world's most prestigious science award for tropical sciences. It is bestowed upon any scientist, institution, or organization worldwide which has made outstanding contributions and innovations towards solving problems of the tropics through science and technology. The work of our Mahathir Science Award laureates, such as Sir Alimuddin Zumla in tropical medicine, is recognized for his exceptional, globally acknowledged health policy relevant research and capacity development. This covers advocacy contributions to the understanding of epidemiology, pathogenesis, diagnosis, treatment and control of tuberculosis, and other respiratory tract infections and emerging pathogens with epidemic potential. Ladies and gentlemen, historically, the Malay Peninsula has started the involvement with biomedical research as early as the dawn of the 20th century. It was in the year 1900 where we established the Institute for Medical Research, or IMR. It carries out scientific and sustained research into the causes, treatment, and prevention of such scourges, and all forms of malaria fevers, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, today's program is part of our initiatives to facilitate global knowledge exchange in tropical medicine by bringing together the world's foremost experts in infectious diseases to one platform. Regretfully, due to COVID-19's restrictions and tight schedules, the Foundation is finally holding this event after 2 years since the 11th Mahathir Science Award ceremony. Although the circumstances only allow us to meet virtually, it is a great honor to have all these esteemed speakers and participants from all over the world. The Mahathir Science Award Foundation is humbly proud that we can be part of the mission to champion tropical diseases with the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. I certainly hope you will be inspired and gain as much as you can from the lecture and discussion today. Inshallah, together we will march forward towards healthier tropics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for your welcoming remarks, and really congratulations to the Mahathir Science Award Foundation, as well as the Academy of Sciences of Malaysia, for really initiating such an important award that truly highlights the importance that science needs to reach out to all parts of the world. And certainly tropics is a hotbed for so many things, including the majority of the world's population. So congratulations, Mahathir Science Award Foundation. And now, for the most anticipated item of the program, the 2020 Mahathir Science Award Laureate public lecture. We will be having a short Q&A session after the lecture. So if any of you have questions, please post them in the Facebook chat box, and we will try to field as many as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, now without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to invite the distinguished Professor Sir Alimuddin Zumla to deliver his lecture on a lifetime's perspective of infectious diseases with epidemic potential. Sir Alimuddin, the screen is yours.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Tan Sri Ladin and Professor Abhi, for the very kind introductions. It's a great pleasure and honor to deliver this very delayed 2020 Mahathir Science Award public lecture. I feel extremely humbled to deliver this talk since student Dr. Mahathir serves an exceptional role model in every possible way. Today, I will not be talking about COVID, since for the past 3 years of daily media highlights, everyone in the world, from the policeman on the beat to the taxi driver, have become COVID experts. Whilst I was preparing my talk on the latest advances and current thinking on other infectious diseases declared global emergencies by the World Health Organization, it occurred to me that this again may be boring to you all, especially since all the information is now available on the internet. I thus sought advice from Prof. Abhi, and he indicated that it may be inspiring for the younger generation scientists amongst you if I talked about my own background, my personal near-death experience with an infectious disease I contracted at the tender age of 26 years, and how this shaped my life's journey and enhanced my commitment as a doctor, researcher, educator, mentor, and global health advocate for reducing the burden of poverty-related diseases. So here we go. Based on my lifetime's experience of infectious diseases, I'm a firm believer that questioning and changing established dogma is essential for advancing medicine and science. This is one of several talks I plan to give. Hopefully, the next one will be in Malaysia, where I can see your beautiful country. In this talk, I will briefly go over my family and educational backgrounds and showcase my beautiful Zambia. I will then relate to you the trials and tribulations of my own experience of contracting a life-threatening infectious disease in the very early stages of my postgraduate training, and how this devastating experience generated in me a lifelong quest to challenge and change established dogma in medicine, science, and society. I will focus on the example of tuberculosis, the disease which nearly took my life and caused lifelong disability. I will describe several instances of twists of fate and serendipity which helped me recover and build back my life and career. Finally, I will also mention how obtaining unity of purpose with like-minded individuals led to an upward trajectory of successes with the establishment of cross-continental equitable research partnerships closely aligned to training, charity, and advocacy work. All our activities are focused on empowering the younger generation scientists and healthcare workers with gender balance, so that the future of what is built can be sustained and advanced. In my previous lectures at overseas universities, a couple of postdocs indicated they were not able to decipher some of the words I pronounced. This may be due to my Zambian accent or nerve palsy. So to make myself clear here, I've inserted most of the text into the slides. You can either listen to me or read the slide or do both. My parents migrated from Asia to Africa during the Second World War. As with all migrants, they faced economic hardships and slowly built up their lives. I was born in 1955 in Chipata, Zambia, formerly British colonial Northern Rhodesia. Zambia is 4 times the size of the United Kingdom and has a population of 15 million people derived from diverse tribal groups who speak 72 different dialects. My parents were a formidable and positive influence in my life and members of all communities in Zambia and beyond. They taught us to focus on excellence in whatever we do in our daily lives and to be kind and respectful to everyone we meet. I will say more about my parents and family at the end of this talk, where I will highlight the roles and support of all the people who helped me along my life's rollercoaster journey. Ever since my primary and secondary school days, my hobbies and interests have been gardening, philately, wildlife conservation, supporting charities, and watching cricket. I find gardening very therapeutic and relaxing, interacting with the beauty of nature, where building blocks of nature recycle continuously in cyclical rhythm, teaches us humans to be humble in the face of nature and respect our environment. I started collecting stamps when I was at primary school. Philately was an excellent way of learning about the world's different cultures, flora, fauna, and currencies. As a child, I regularly visited foreign embassies in Lusaka to request stamps from used envelopes. By the way, I still have my childhood stamp albums which contain some historic Malaysian stamps. I want to share with you photos of Zambia's stunning flora. Zambia has a range of majestic fauna. Zambia also has some of the world's best game reserves, which are a major tourist attraction. Zambians are very friendly and fun-loving people. Zambia is also famous for its magnificent Victoria Falls, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Please note that as I grew up in Zambia, I enjoyed a very happy, healthy, and enjoyable life. Friendships we established across all communities in Zambia continue until today. I've always had an inquisitive mind, and my thinking out of the box sessions with my teachers at primary and secondary school kept them occupied. All my teachers encouraged me to take up science or medicine as a career. In 1972, I enrolled on an intercalated BSc MB CHP degree program at the University of Zambia and University of Zambia School of Medicine. I was awarded several prizes during my undergraduate years. I obtained my intercalated BSc degree in human biology with distinction, a rare honor. I was thus offered a prestigious scholarship to study medicine at Oxford University in the UK. I was 18 years old at that time, and going to Oxford University was every student's dream. However, I turned the offer down. Having seen the devastation and misery caused by poverty-related diseases in my own home country, Zambia, I decided that it was more important for me to continue to train in medicine in Zambia so I could get first-hand experience of locally prevalent health problems. It's been 50 years since I made that decision. Looking back, it was the right decision to make. I've always believed that one does not need a Rolls-Royce to make a journey. It's the careful, committed driver with experience who is more important, both for achieving excellence and achieving impactful deliverables. I enjoyed my clinical years at medical school and graduated as a doctor in 1979. The external examiners from London encouraged me to undertake postgraduate training in the UK after my internship. During my clinical years at medical school, I had realized that, although our senior doctors were perceived as all-knowing gods, there were several established dogmas on infectious disease management, both in textbooks and clinical practice, which were taught without being questioned. My definition of dogma is as follows. It's a belief, scientific, political, or other, that is stubbornly held as undoubtedly the truth, regardless of absence of a credible evidence base. I had realized that science was just scratching the surface of knowledge, and a huge amount remained unknown, yet to be discovered. Dr. Tun Mahathir's wise words of wisdom resonate with my thoughts and observations at that time and even now. Don't accept things at face value. Don't jump to conclusions without thinking. Find your own answers and make evidence-based judgments. I had also repeatedly challenged established dogma of colonial research models operating in Zambia. Also worrying to me was that there was little or no involvement of local African professionals in research, and neither there was any local training or capacity development, a ridiculous and totally unacceptable situation. Whilst the status quo bothered me and others in my group, at this stage of our careers, there was nothing we could do to change this status quo. The way to change things would be to get specialist qualifications, focus on excellence, and become internationally competitive. I was comforted at that time by reading the bio and wise words of the great Dutch philosopher Baruch Spinoza. I quote, "If you want the present to be different from the past, then study and learn from the past to find better solutions. And do not be discouraged just because your new ideas and insights do not conform with norm and are not accepted by many." Apparently, Spinoza died of tuberculosis. I also want to mention a twist of fate here. 33 years after I qualified as a doctor, in 2012, I was awarded the Spinoza Prize by the Amsterdam University, and I was able to visit his statue in The Hague. In 1980, I embarked on a master's course in tropical medicine at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, which I obtained with distinction and was awarded the Murgatroyd Prize for the best student. That year broadened my outlook on infectious diseases and was a very culturally enriching one for me. We were taught by distinguished tropical diseases experts such as Professor Alan Woodruff, Stephen Wright, and Gordon Cook. I want to mention another twist of fate here. 25 years later, in 1995, Professor Gordon Cook, photo on the right, came to work in my center at UCL. We co-edited the ginormous tropical medicine textbook, Manson's Tropical Diseases, volumes 21 and 22. And we also worked together as president and secretary of the Postgraduate Medical Fellowship, and were president and board member of the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine, and we were also co-editors of the Postgraduate Medical Journal. Life does have its twists here. After my master's degree, I worked as a junior doctor at the Hammersmith Hospital in London. As an ethnic minority doctor and foreign graduate, I acquired invaluable experience of the ignorance, the prejudice, the bias, and inequities that sadly prevailed in the UK NHS and the academic system at that time. I was advised that the USA system was better for specialist training in infectious diseases. I thus obtained the necessary USA visa requirement exam. Unfortunately, tragic twist of fate intervened with my plans. Out of the blue, the day before my travel to the USA for interviews, I developed near-fatal infectious disease. However, there were many silver linings to this shocking experience, which only came visible in retrospect. I thus want to share with you more details of this devastating, life-changing experience. I'd applied for an infectious disease fellowship program at the NIH in Washington and was shortlisted by Professor Franklin Never and Tony Fauci for interview to run for a week. My parents were keen that I get married and had arranged for me to meet with eligible partners, daughters of friends, whilst I was in the USA. I went to Heathrow Airport and was told that my flight was from Gatwick, so I missed my flight. I could not believe that such a meticulous person like me had been so careless. I rebooked my flight, called Professor Franklin Never to reschedule my interview, and returned to my flat, where I felt nauseated and tired. So I consulted my GP. He found I had fever, inflamed throat, and diagnosed flu. He prescribed paracetamol and said it was okay to travel the next day. So I went to my flat and went to bed. Unbeknown to me, I had lapsed into coma overnight and I was found on the floor by a friend the next day and taken by ambulance as an emergency admission to UCLH hospital. There were clear-cut signs of meningitis, but the laboratory results were not clear-cut. So a possible diagnosis of acute bacterial meningitis was made, and IV antibiotics started empirically. On day 7, laboratory results confirmed my meningitis was due to tuberculosis. The twist of fate here is that this was a rare, atypical, acute presentation, and I was very unlucky to get it. TB treatment was started. I'd lost my ability to walk and had double vision. I also encountered many side effects of the TB drugs. The neurologist taking care of me, Dr. Gerald Stern, took a special interest in me. He kept my brain ticking by getting me to give tutorials to medical students from my bed. He mentioned to my parents that he saw me becoming a professor one day. I cynically laughed, knowing he was just being kind, and the prospects of me becoming a professor were none. After several months, I was discharged from hospital in a wheelchair. My weight had dropped from 55 kilograms to 28 kilograms, and I was just skin and bones only. I spent a period of convalescence with my brother in Lancashire, which included daily visits to Blackburn Royal Hospital for physio and regular GP visits. Life had come to a standstill. This sudden, devastating, life-changing experience at a young and formative stage of my life and career seemed a nightmare, which would go away the next day, but it never did. The whole world had crashed on me. I had lost my ability to walk due to crippling neuropathy and diplopia. The prognosis given by my doctors for any functional recovery was poor. I had no future job prospects. All my hard work becoming a doctor down the drain, and I had no marital prospects. Potential partners in the USA lined up by my father were no longer interested. These were very depressing and trying times, but I never gave up hope. I mulled over many scientific and philosophical questions recurring in my mind about my own illness and about life in general. I needed to recalibrate my life. So month 8 post-diagnosis, to face reality, I decided to return to Zambia and live with my parents. I adapted a new lifestyle and routine around my disabilities, and I reflected on how to assist disadvantaged populations from my wheelchair. I spent months 8 to 17 of my convalescence period in Lusaka, Zambia. With my parents' loving attention and daily prayers, I started to rebuild life again and slowly adapted to living with my disabilities. Swallowing 18 tablets of TB and other medications was also problematic. My mother's olive oil massages, good food, coupled with a positive mindset and sheer determination to get functionally better, never give up hope, became my motto. A few weeks into my convalescence, another twist of fate happened. My toes and then my feet started moving, and I eventually was able to hobble with the aid of walking sticks. The severe neuropathic pain, however, did not resolve. I kept in touch with my UK neurologist, Dr. Stern. I designed a medical clinic from one of my dad's shop and ran it as a general practice, charging no fees for the poor patients, and employed a locum to assist me. I kept abreast of the latest clinical literature and also taught medical students at my clinic. To keep mentally occupied, I continued with my hobbies of philately, watching cricket, and supporting parents with their charity work. By this time, it had become very clear to me that medicine and science were only scratching the surface of knowledge. There was a huge amount that was unknown. More remained to be discovered by unraveling the mysteries of the interactions between microbes and humans. We humans needed to humble ourselves in the face of nature. I kept having repeated questions on my mind, especially the dogmas that existed in medical textbooks and medical practice. The questions I asked myself were, why did I develop active TB meningitis when I had plenty of exposure to TB patients whilst at medical school? There was the dogma of protective immunity to TB. I had received BCG at birth. Why did it not protect me from severe TB? My clinical presentation of tuberculous meningitis was atypical. It went against everything we were taught at medical school about TB. What predisposed me to having this disseminated form of TB? And TB was supposed to have been controlled in the UK, yet I developed TB. Despite persisting crippling neuropathy and fragile walking, my parents encouraged me to return to London to complete my clinical specialist training and fulfill my career ambitions. I obtained a medical registrar job with two of the kindest people I have ever met. Professors Jerin James and Dame Sheila Sherlock. With their mentorship, I quickly passed my Royal College of Physicians MRCP postgraduate exam, and I was delighted my brain was still functioning. I want to mention a special happy twist of fate here. I met and married Fazana. Her exuberant love, care, and support has underpinned all my successes to date. We all started a family. Gosh, we looked so young then. Time does fly. To pursue my research instincts and answer the many dogma and questions I had ruminated about for years, I really wanted to have some research experience and become a clinician scientist. So between 1985 and 87, I completed a PhD at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. I was awarded the Alan Woodruff Medal for the best PhD. I then spent the happiest year of my clinical training period as a medical registrar at one of UK's finest infectious diseases hospital in Romford. Through lateral thinking, taking careful histories, and questioning existing dogma, and ignoring the advice of the local microbiologist and local public health expert, I unraveled a major Legionnaires' disease outbreak occurring in central London. This saved many lives. This is an exciting story to tell, which I must relate to the medical students and doctors amongst you when I visit Malaysia at the next opportunity. In 1988, I obtained a post as Senior Registrar at UK's premier hospital and institute, the Royal Postgrad Medical School and Hammersmith Hospital. I completed my specialist training in infectious diseases, internal medicine, and clinical immunology. My research interests at that time were focused on the T-cell receptor V-beta repertoire. I did not want to have anything to do with TB at the time. Following my specialist accreditation in the UK, I was recruited by Professor Bert DuPont to take up the post of Associate Professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. For this, I had to obtain an Alien of Extraordinary Ability category visa. Still continuing to support my home country, Zambia, we obtained an NIH program grant to set up a very successful University of Texas, University of Zambia, UTZAM, research and training program on HIV-associated diarrhea and wasting. I still did not want anything to do with tuberculosis. When I visited Lusaka to help set up the UTZAM team, I was very disappointed to find that my observations of colonial models of research operating in Zambia, which I observed as a medical student between 1972 and 1979, were still prevalent. The dogma that only Western groups could conduct high-quality research still prevailed. There was a dire need to change these colonial models of research. Over the ensuing 2 years, our UTZAM program became a role model of locally led, equitable, fair partnerships aligned closely to capacity development and training. I was drawn back to the subject of tuberculosis by twist of fate. A tragedy was unfolding in Africa where the dual epidemics of tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS were spreading relentlessly. They were taking a huge toll on all age groups with enormous social consequences. This 14-year-old girl on the right of the photo is carrying her baby brother on her back, and she was also looking after 5 other siblings. Their parents, uncles, and aunts had died of HIV/AIDS, leaving no one to look after them. They were all living huddled together in a roadside gutter and had asked us for money when the car stopped at the traffic lights. After Fazana and my mom fed them, we took them to our Zambia host, Professor Chintu, who was a renowned pediatrician, for a thorough medical check. 3 of the children had TB and 2 were HIV positive. After treatment, they were then accommodated at the local orphanage. This heart-wrenching encounter made me decide to focus my research career on tuberculosis, AIDS, and other infectious diseases declared global emergencies by the World Health Organization. A photo is worth 1,000 words, as the saying goes. This photo says it all. The mother had been diagnosed with active TB and AIDS. Note the herpes zoster scars on the mother's abdomen. The husband had died of AIDS. The child had TB and HIV co-infection and died soon after. This was confirmed at autopsy, as shown in the slide. There were no antiretroviral drugs available at that time. In 1993, tuberculosis and HIV were both declared global emergencies by the World Health Organization. Tuberculosis was causing 3 million deaths worldwide annually, and Africa bore the brunt of both the HIV and TB epidemics. I was a member of the WHO Expert Advisory Group. Can anybody spot me in that photo? The questions I asked the committee were, why did TB cause 3 million deaths annually despite cheap and effective treatment being available since 1960? Why was TB not on the radar of governments and policymakers worldwide? Infectious diseases do not respect international boundaries, so why were Western countries not bothered about tuberculosis, but were only focused on HIV/AIDS? A sad state of affairs which needed to be changed. This jump-started my voluntary involvement in global advocacy work with policymakers, funders, governments, community groups, charities, WHO Stop TB Department, and WHO Stop TB Partnership. Tuberculosis and HIV continued to spread in Africa and overwhelmed health services. No rapid diagnostics or antiretroviral drugs were available. When ARVs became available, they were not affordable. And when eventually they became available, they interacted with TB drugs and caused severe side effects. My emotional experience with the orphan children in Zambia and the declaration of tuberculosis and HIV as global emergencies reignited all the questions and dogma I had reminisced upon when I fell ill with TB meningitis. Several recurring questions kept me awake. These are listed in this slide. I was determined to help the global effort to control TB and HIV. I wanted to focus on all aspects of TB: research, training, advocacy, charity, and engagement with all stakeholders. Big ambition. I love my clinical service work as well, and looking after patients and their holistic needs was very special to me. And yet, I also wanted to get fully engaged with global health activities. The critical question was, how and when could I get an appropriate academic position to pursue both? In 1994, another positive twist of fate gave me the ideal position I was looking for. I was appointed Director of the Centre for Infectious Diseases and International Health at University College London and Consultant Infectious Diseases Physician at University College London Hospitals. Please note that I was now to lead the Global Health Infectious Diseases portfolio at the very hospital at which I was admitted 12 years earlier with TB meningitis. Upon my appointment at UCL, my neurologist, Professor Gerald Stern, smugly remarked to me that he had predicted that I would become a professor one day, even wrote to my parents congratulating them. UCL is one of the top universities in the world, and for the past 30 years, it has provided an excellent base for me to fulfill my clinician's role and to take forward my global health work. In 1994, we established the University of Zambia, University College London Medical School Research and Training Project, UNZA UCLMS project. This became a role model of an African-led, equitable South-North partnership program where research is closely aligned to capacity building, training, and advocacy focused on gender and ethnic balance. Anyone who agreed with our ethos was warmly welcomed to collaborate, and this resulted in an enhancing and multiplier effect. Our initial focus was on TB and HIV/AIDS, since they were declared global emergencies which required attention. Over the ensuing years, our international research and training networks expanded to neighboring countries and then across continents. We continued to challenge and change dogma of colonial research models in Africa by being bold and daring. We made the problem visible through writing in high impact factor journals. We also overcame this dogma by achieving high quality, health policy relevant outputs with global impact, promoting South-South networking, and obtaining political commitment and significant grants. We also kept up advocacy work through communities, World Health Organization, and policymakers. In Europe and USA, tuberculosis is still regarded to be a disease of poverty and poor populations, or those infected with HIV. Can I remind everyone that this age-old dogma is not true? There should not be any stigma attached to it, nor for that matter, any other disease. The slide shows a list of affluent individuals in the USA and Europe who had died of TB. I myself nearly died of tuberculosis, and I was not poor when I contracted it. Even high-profile African leaders also developed tuberculosis, dispelling the dogma that only poor people get TB. Whilst the causative microorganism that causes TB is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, over 98% of people who get infected with these bacteria do not get active tuberculosis disease. Thus, a whole range of host and social factors predispose to people developing active TB. These factors are driving the TB pandemic and require serious political and funder attention, especially in light of the distractions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has significantly set back UN TB control targets. To summarize, over the past 30 years, my teams and collaborators have developed an upward trajectory of award-winning research, capacity development, training, and advocacy networks across all continents along the specific themes shown in this slide. Note the leadership of our novel and very successful One Human-Animal Health cross-continental program, Pandora IDNet, is co-directed by a high-profile role model female African scientist, Professor Francine Ntomi. Please visit our websites to read all about our activities and outputs. I would like to suggest you read the Lancet series of 4 excellent articles on One Health published last week, written by our Pandora team members and coordinated by Dr. Osman Dar. I would also like to share my life's lessons and pearls of wisdom with the young scientists in this audience. Life's too short to waste, so spend your precious time in activities which are useful to yourself and to the wider community. Whenever you face difficulties in life, do not give up hope. Better opportunities and times await you. Note, serendipity favors the prepared mind. Focusing on excellence with passion and commitment in whatever you do is a key to success. And finally, there are thousands of people I would like to thank for holding hands with me and supporting me during my roller coaster but successful journey. A year ago, when I received another prestigious award, the Pascal Mukumbi Prize from the EU EDCTP, an elegant 3-minute video was developed by Patrick Robinson, where I was able to summarize and showcase the unity of purpose across all professions globally. I would like to play this video here. I did not make this successful roller coaster and exciting journey alone. I'm deeply indebted to my late parents, who were a formidable and positive influence in my life, in the lives of my siblings, and members of all communities in Lusaka, Zambia, and beyond. Their love, respect, and concern for all peoples, irrespective of their backgrounds, ethnicity, beliefs, or economic status, educated us that all life, human and animal, is sacred. They taught us to focus our lives on excellence in whatever we do, and to engage in activities that directly and indirectly helped improve the lives and health of disadvantaged and poor populations everywhere. Coping daily with the painful neurological sequencing of meningitis, which I contracted as a junior doctor 38 years ago, has been very trying and difficult. I am thus deeply indebted to my loving wife Fazana, my adorable children Adam, Musa, and Adila, my brothers Ayub, Ibrahim, Abdul, and sister Farida, and their families for their exuberant love, care, support, and encouragement. Throughout my career, I have been fortunate to work with thousands of committed, outstanding, and wonderful people across all continents. Thus, the award of the Pascal Mukumbi Prize to me reflects the commitment, dedication, and hard work of my collaborators from across the world. Research teams and staff over the past 30 years,
students and postdoc mentees in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Our current UNZA, UCLMS, and Herpes project teams in Zambia, EDCTP-funded Pandora One Health Network, and EDCTP Networks of Excellence teams. Members of the World Health Organization and other expert and advisory groups and committees. Members of the EDCTP Scientific Advisory Committees, Global Health Advocacy Groups and policymakers, UK Houses of Parliament, all-party parliamentary groups on global TB and global health, in particular leadership on poverty-related diseases from Lord Nick Herbert, Baroness Susan Masham, Lord Nigel Crisp, Honorary Virendra Sharma, and the late Lord Adam Patel, and others. Community groups, journal editors, diplomats, faith groups, and charity trustees. A global authorship who helped me develop a range of educational and advocacy materials. It is only by holding hands together and moving forward, united in the fight against killer infections, that the world will be able to prepare more effectively and bring killer infectious diseases under control. Obrigado, Zikomo Kwambiri, Shukran Gazilan, Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Sir Alimuddin Zumla, for sharing your sophisticated science, your love for Zambia, and your remarkable personal story of family influence and principles. You had the whole garam masala there, right? Personal drive for excellence, the near-death experience, and the subsequent rising like a phoenix, the many arranged marriage proposals, and then the discovery of the true love, the rich global connections that you have. I mean, seriously, Sir Ali, you have all the ingredients for a Hollywood or perhaps Bollywood movie. But jokes aside, you mentioned a couple of times really about how you yourself had many times fought the urge to blindly follow existing scientific dogma and the prevailing presuppositions, because we recognize that there are structural or cognitive biases that sometimes can impact the progress of scientific research. That same, dogmatic approach is sometimes the strength as well as its weakness. And this can influence certainly the scientific community in the way it operates, as well as the way scientific knowledge is then perceived and translated. You have dedicated so much of your life's work in clarifying what is called the unknown unknowns, as well as correcting what were previously what we thought as the known knowns. So if today, after so many years of research, what is the one scientific question that still keeps you awake or hungry? Because I still see that passion every time I speak, to you. Could you maybe share with us, if it's not one question, perhaps a few questions that excite you?
There are hundreds of questions, Abhi.
I thought so.
And I still think the one question that we need to answer is why cannot we establish equitable partnerships across continents? I mean, the pandemic, the COVID pandemic has illustrated the inequities still exist. But I think the change for colonial models takes a long time, because those driving them and perpetuating it were born into families and educational systems that they controlled, and they are the resource-rich countries that do so. And unless we empower the younger generation to think differently, it will take a long time to change. We still need to think about this carefully. For example, the colonial attitudes of several institutions, such as 2 UK tropical schools and the Wellcome Trust, have only been recently called out as institutionally racist by independent reviews. And whether they change this based on these reports still remains to be known. Yeah. So changes in these biases and prejudices will require education and empowerment of a younger generation to think differently. and to focus on unity of purpose for improving human life, especially the lives of poor and disadvantaged populations everywhere. So I urge these young scientists in the audience here to start having the passion to drive things and change things and develop more equitable partnerships so they can work together with like-minded scientists throughout the world. Thank you, Ami.
Thanks, Alimuddin. I'll get back to you because I think I would like to also know what are some of the perhaps scientific questions. But since you've answered something really very fundamental, and I think this is where why you have achieved so much, right? Because you understand where the real problems are. And we have actually a question from Alia Nabil, and I think it goes around the fact that as you mentioned, there is a greater recognition of that impact of colonial mentality and I guess to a certain extent the racist privilege that has benefited certain institutions or countries. And you mentioned the importance of decolonization and democratizing science. But sometimes the focus is still on how can the global north do better, right? Alia Nabil here asked the question, with your vast experience, Sir Ali, especially in the context of global research partnerships, and as you alluded to the importance of equitable partnerships, how can we reduce this dependency from foreign governments, but actually sustain some of this brilliant work that were initiated by funding by foreign governments, like the work that you have done, to something a little bit more sustainable and excellence that is driven and maintained by the global south countries or specific country?
Well, thank you, Aliyah, for your question. I think that's an important one, but things are not as gloomy as I made it sound. I was talking about 40 years ago when I started research. Things have changed since then. There have been huge developments in taking this forward. There's an institution here called CORE that is based, all its educational and partnership models based on what I talked about, equitable partnerships. But there have been huge developments in terms of commitments from all governments, across the world. A key example is the European Development Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, EDCTP, which was formed 20 years ago as a model of investing more into African countries and with commitment from their governments. And that has had huge impact. Numerous African scientists have been trained. There have been networks. You saw in one of my slides the partnerships that have gone across from Africa to Europe. And I think with those changes, and I'm sure there are equal changes that are occurring in Asia, things look better and it's promising. And it's empowering people like you, Elia, to take the mantle now is the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Alimuddin. And Alia, you heard that. It's like he's passed the baton. So take it on. Next question from Prof. Chia Yokwin of University Putra Malaysia. His question to you, apart from, so I'm going to remove all the complementaries and focus on the question. How do we address neglected tropical diseases more effectively? So I guess it's How do you get people who are not even aware of its importance, and get them to do the work that is needed?
Well, the WHO TDR in Geneva has focused on NTDs, and one of the key people of the EDCTP, Professor Moses Bokery, has been involved in supporting neglected tropical diseases. There's a lot of movement there, but I think we need to focus on the media now. The media just focus on acute illnesses that have immediate impact only and have forgotten what's happened. I mean, TB is another example. That's a neglected tropical disease. I gave a talk in Paris about 5 years ago on schistosomiasis. And I said, is the schistosome a happy parasite in a happy host? And everybody's neglected that because it's causing huge problems. About 300 million people suffer the side effects. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I work in bladder cancer. So schistosomiasis is such a big problem in the context of urological cancers in Egypt. But interestingly,
Abhi, I think another way forward would be to look at a more holistic view of people. So when a patient comes to you with an acute problem, you have to screen them for other neglected diseases which will have as comorbidities. And this is the way forward. We think by having rapid diagnostic tests and the rare occasion of the patient coming from the village or from the rural areas to points of care, you take the opportunity to screen them for all the diseases, just not the problem they come with. Thank you.
That's right. So not just a precision medicine approach, but more a holistic medicine approach. And I think that really answered the question that Prof. Chia Yokwin brought up, which is, what extent, we talk about the One Health approach, where the convergence of, potential zoonotic spillovers or, the animal health, human health interface in the fight against NTDs. But I've got an interesting question from Nathan Kapata. And his question is, Sali Zumla, and I think it's from the perspective that, a lot of the way in which we think about the world and medicine as being very anthropocentric. So his question is, we're focused only on the human aspects of microbes in this discourse. And yet many microbes like the SARS-CoV-2, Ebola, arise from animals. Can we have some conversations, which I'm sure it's yes, and that could be the next lecture with you, the next time we have you. But I guess the question is, really, what are your perspectives on how and why we have these viruses live happily in animals, but cause fatal disease in humans?
Thank you, Nathan. And I think we could probably cover some of this in the next session where I think we've got Professor Richard Koch, who is our key veterinary partner in the dialogue on One Health. And I think we should also refer you to the Lancet series on One Health. But basically, my issue about this is very simple. These viruses are living happily in happy animal hosts out in the forests and in their natural habitats. And it's man's interference with nature that causes a species jump and causes the viruses to lose their way within humans. And I think we need to have respect for nature and stop man's inhumanity to man, which leads to wars and famines and displaces populations to go into the forest, be hungry, and look for food. We can have a longer dialogue on this. It'll probably take 2 or 3 days. Thank you.
Great. And in fact, Richard Koch has just added a question. His question is, how do we convert the abundant information available to us through the internet to knowledge that will rapidly advance science into policy and practical solutions to infectious disease challenges? And I don't think ChatGPT is the answer here. So the question was, how do we convert these huge amounts of information and to actually rapidly providing scientific input into policy and practical solutions, especially in the context of infectious diseases?
Thanks, Richard. I think this is the million-dollar question, because we've been trying to do that with the political arm of policymakers. We've engaged with parliamentarians, with policymakers, with WHO. But the problem here is you may put a lot of effort into, say, promoting NTDs or One Health issues, and the day before they're about to meet to make a policy change, we have an outbreak of something or a disaster elsewhere, and all the attention goes away. So we need constant making the problems visible constantly and persistently from all quarters, to make a change.
Thank you. We also have questions which I've merged. Kazim B and from John Tambo. The questions were, what are the biggest global health challenges in the context of infectious diseases, especially ahead to prepare for the next pandemic?
That again will take about 2 days to answer. I'll just refer you to the Lancet series we published on One Health. Thank you.
Sure, but if there was one global health challenge, you see, the policymaker out there is not going to read the Lancet Commission. It needs experts like you to give us a short summary or a two-pointer. What would that be, Sir Alimuddin?
This is to change what?
Essentially, what are the biggest global health challenges in preparation of the next pandemic? So what are the challenges that we have now in terms of ensuring we are more resilient?
It's interesting that when the COVID-19 outbreak occurred, we had our European public health officials coming on board in the early stages saying we have the best pandemic preparedness plans in the world. Yeah, they had rehearsals about this I think 2 months earlier, on being prepared for the influenza pandemic, which we've been preparing for 40 years. And we are all the public health authorities were caught with the pants down. They were not prepared. There was a global pandemic. So I think the whole system today needs to be rediscussed, revamped, and make sure that everybody's prepared. And the predictions that Africa will suffer the most from COVID pandemic didn't occur. So this can affect the best public health systems in the world, and I think it needs a global effort. Now, there are moves towards this. The formation of the Africa CDC has been a very significant development for Africa. And I think that's a model that European countries could also take now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think Dorothy had a question about how Africa and other LMICs can take their own destiny in their hands. And I think, Sally, you just answered that in your previous question as well.
Abhi, I think Africa can take the destiny. I think the COVID pandemic has really injected a new enthusiasm within governments. I think the Africa Union and the African CDC are talking about this. There's been huge investments. The government commitment is so important here. And of course, financial resources to do so.
Absolutely. And I think in Malaysia, we also have the Academy of Sciences Malaysia playing a very important role in this, what is called a knowledge brokerage, to ensure that, understanding that there are other factors in determining policies, but ultimately, science needs to be one of those factors when it's made. We are running out of time, so I'm going to ask one final question. And I think, Sir Ali, everyone here, listening in, and especially the young researchers, I'm told we have more than 30 countries listening in today to this amazing sharing. Many of the young researchers that have to grapple with, all the demands of like how you described, early life, this amazing story of finding your love, having children, and moving jobs. They are confronted with what is perceived as a conflict, especially with the incentivization of publications, to publish papers, to have citations, versus the patience that's required to doing research that truly matters and impact, and perhaps not have the same level of instant gratification. So what is your message to these individuals who feel that ultimately, research needs to be conducted, research that matters needs to be conducted, rather than playing the game? We need to know what the end game is. Do you have a message to all the young researchers listening in today?
I do. I think it's a difficult time when you're young, you're a teenager getting into your 20s, you're registering for degree programs, and then there are other life's issues that come in. But the most important thing is don't give up hope. Don't give up your passion to take things forward, and things will change. Look for opportunities. Yeah, as I pointed out in my talk, serendipity favors the prepared mind. And find yourself a mentor who is committed to look after you. I've seen many PhD students find mentors just for the sake of the mentor getting a PhD student on record and neglects them. As a PhD examiner, I see many students, and I feel sorry for them that after 4 years of supervision, they haven't learned. The important thing is to think independently, to keep on questioning, and do not lose hope. And always seek help when you're stuck. There are loads of people like Prof. Abhi in Malaysia. I mean, he's a wonderful person. Professor Adiba and others I've met. They're role models to follow. And therefore, drop them a line, insist, go and meet them. And then with this sort of help, you will move forward. And good luck to you all. I'll be available. If any of you want any advice, please do contact me.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sir Ali. And I think your message, right, that rather than the type of vehicle, it's the human element. And we certainly need a lot of human drivers, that matter in our battle against the grand challenges and the journey that we need to take there. And I thought your Rolls-Royce story and the driver was a perfect analogy. To all our audience and participants, thank you so much for engaging in this very short Q&A session. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, due to time constraints, we have to end the session here today. But Sir Alimuddin has kindly agreed to answer any remaining questions, or perhaps some of these questions he might want to revisit later. And that's the kind of man he is. He really cares, to ensure that our dialogue continues and really we engage and find the solutions that are unanswered. And so the Mahathir Science Award Foundation has then agreed to share his responses on a later date. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Professor Sir Alimuddin Zumla again for that amazing personal lecture. Sir Alimuddin, every single time I hear you speak, and also all the different WhatsApp messages that you have sent, I'm so amazed by your humility, but also that quiet but burning passion, to make that impact that truly matters. And I'm sure that today, again, you have really inspired everyone who has turned out today. And really congratulations for your achievements. And we wish you greater achievements. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Abhi. Much appreciated. God bless.
Yeah. And to all the participants for joining us today, please also remember that your presence and your engagement in the support of science is also much appreciated, because it's only through your engagement we make a better case in really enriching the discourse, but also engaging the policymakers on the importance of science. So thank you. As we end the first session for today, I would like to remind everyone that after this 5-minute comfort break, we will continue on to our second session, the joint intellectual discourse with the topic, do humans only exist to provide a culture medium for microbes? That's going to be interesting. And it's going to be moderated by my good friend, Kai. And joining Professor Sir Alimuddin Zumla is our very own Malaysian academic icon, Professor Datuk Dr. Abhi Veerakumarasivam. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us. And over to you, Nani.
Thank you very much, Professor Abhi. For session 2, please note that all registered participants will be submitted into Zoom a webinar at 4:30 p.m. So we have 3 minutes. Thank you very much and stay tuned.